ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices, review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci. Welcome to PhilSci Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci Hub Research University. Welcome to PhilSci Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to a research project. Learn from the PhilSci Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci Hub Research University.
Hello, this is Filipino Science Hub, and today we will have our video demonstration for the topic Heredity in Grade 3 Biology. For the materials needed, we need nips or the candies, and then yung paglalagyan natin, yung plastic cups, and para sa ating pag-name, we have marker. To start with, let me prepare the materials needed. So, ang gagawin natin ay we will segregate the candies into different by their colors. So we will have 5 different plastic cups with 5 different colors: yellow, violet, blue, orange, and red. So kailangan ma-distribute natin sila by their color kasi ito yung magiging basis ng traits mixing natin later. And ito yung pinaka-essence ng ating activity. And if you need guidance mga bata sa parents ninyo, feel free to do so. So 5 siya, need lang natin ng 4 pala. So itatabi natin mamaya yung yellow. So we will label the red mother A, the blue father A, and then the orange as mother B, and lastly the violet color with father B. So, itabi na natin yung yellow kasi 4 lang yung need natin. So, for the first scenario, we will have 3 different offspring. So, offspring 1, offspring 2, and lastly, offspring 3. So, ayan. So, ang gagamitin muna natin ay mother A, red, and father A, blue. So, we will just segregate them through the different plastic cups. And take note, dapat in random order since we want to have different ratios of the colors or the traits that coming from the mother and the father. So after this, yan, we will count offspring 1, offspring 2, and offspring 3. And for the second scenario, we will have the violet color or the father B and the orange mother B. So, ganun din, katulad lang din kanina. Ayan, yun yung mga bilang. And that's all. And don't forget to answer the questions on your worksheets. And I hope na marami kayong natutunan.
Magandang umaga po sa atin. Welcome to Hub. Thank you for your continued support to this online platform. To our new participants, thank you for checking us out today, and we would like to officially welcome you to the PhilSci Hub family. So bago po tayo magsimula, I would like to share some house rules in order to facilitate a smooth session for everyone. For our Zoom participants, we would appreciate it if you could turn your audio and video cameras off during the webinar. If you have questions or comments, feel free to type them on our Zoom chat box or YouTube live comments, and we will try possible. After the talk, we will have a 30-minute Q&A where the Zoom participants will have the opportunity to ask their questions live. We would also like to request for everyone to not record the webinar. The full video of the session will be posted on our official YouTube channel. For those who would like to receive a certificate of participation, a Google Form link will be posted on our Zoom chat box, YouTube live comments, and YouTube video description towards the end of the webinar. Please make sure that you enter the correct information, especially your email address, receipt of the certificate. Also, for you to obtain the certificate, you will need to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as follow our page on Facebook. Please note that we receive hundreds of requests and it takes around 7 days or so to process all the certificates. If you do not receive your certificate after a week, please feel free to send us a message on Facebook or email us at philscihub@gmail.com. So again, welcome po sa PhilSci Hub. Welcome to all our Zoom participants and our YouTube live viewers. For me familiar, allow me to share our mission and vision in the next few minutes. Filipino Science Hub is an online platform founded by our CEO, Filipino scientist Dr. Jeffrey Camacho Bunquin, back in 2012. Currently, we are a registered nonprofit organization based in Houston, Texas, United States. Our mission is to promote STEM education and the culture of research among students and teachers in the Philippines and abroad. Our current global leadership team is comprised of volunteer Filipino scientists and seasoned STEM educators from different. Our vision is to see a technology and innovation-driven Philippines, and we believe that this can be achieved by creating a new generation of well-rounded Filipino STEM enthusiasts. This vision is being carried out via our two major programs, the PhilSci Hub Ed program and PhilSci Hub Research University. Through PhilSci Hub Ed, we are able to empower and support our teachers when it comes to strengthening STEM fundamentals education. Because the more equipped our STEM educators are, the more they can inspire our students to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Through this program, we have been able to serve our teachers by creating STEM teaching modules, as well as conducting teachers training webinars, all of which are accessible on our website for free. So we have also been able to collaborate with major educational organizations that have the same goals and advocacies as Filipino Science Hub. Through these partnerships, further and help more students and teachers especially during the time of pandemic. So together, everybody achieves more. The other major program that drives our vision forward is PhilSci Hub Research University. We believe that in order to strengthen a STEM culture, students also need to be able to learn how to conduct a scientific research. As we know, many scientific and technological breakthroughs happened through research, and we would like to equip our younger generation by providing them proper scientific research training. So, ika nga po, start Research University, we provide free courses on fundamentals of scientific research, such as research ideation, literature review, how to write a research proposal, how to communicate your research work to the scientific community, among other courses. Through this program, we are also able to bring practicing scientists closer to the STEM educational sector. So because of this closer contact, our students become more aware of the possible STEM career paths available for them and how these careers contribute. So up to date, we have been able to reach over 70,000 students and teachers all over the world. And we know that this will continue to grow in the years to come. And this is why we are all very excited on what is in store here at PhilSci Hub. Our official website is www.philscihub.com. This is where you can access all our materials such as webinars, tutorials, modules, virtual lab, and special features. We are also present in several social media platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. So follow us wherever we are most active on to get updated with our web events. So again, thank you for being with us this morning. And to officially start our webinar, I would like to turn the virtual floor over to our host for today.
Okay, magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Ako po si Jeffrey Buntin. Magpapakilala muna po ako. Ako po si Jeffrey Buntin and I am the founder of Filipino Science Hub, and I'm also a practicing Filipino scientist, and I'm based here in Houston. Po lahat sa pagsama po ninyo uli sa amin ngayong araw ng Sabado. So it's been a while since we had our last webinar na open po to the public. So at sa araw pong ito, we're actually very happy to kumbaga share with you some of like tips and best practices that educators can adapt and implement for assessing the effectiveness of their instruction. So ang focus po natin dito is a STEM teaching assessment. And so for today, we'll touch on some basics of STEM teaching assessment, but then we will actually cover some strategies on how we can actually formulate assessment na catered po towards PISA type ng question. So I'm not sure if you're familiar po with PISA, but we'll talk about that in my in some of my slides. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so we have a few topics to cover for today, and ito po yung outline ng ating discussions. I will start by presenting yung PISA plans ng Filipino students in 2018, and that's actually at the core of our initiatives to help teachers learn and adapt different strategies for assessment para prepared yung students natin sa mga ganitong klase ng assessments. Secondly, we have Dr. Aldrin Bonto from De La Salle University, and he'll touch on some fundamentals and the importance of STEM teaching assessment. He will also share some strategies on how to improve test construction. So, bale po audiences for today. Some of you might be quite experienced. So consider po itong mga contents na i-deliver na Sir Aldrin as refresher po ng inyong mga natutunan from way back and from your practice. And then we also have Ian, Mhar, Gabriel, who will talk about higher order thinking skills, lower order thinking skills, and how we can use STEM teaching assessments as tools for us to inculcate these skills sa ating mga estudyante. Ito po napakahalaga po nito. And I'm hoping para po dun sa mga bagong practitioners sa ating sa STEM pedagogy, I'm hoping that you actually take inspiration from this approach. After that, I will also present to you Filipino Science Hub's project on the development that focuses on the development of assessment-focused instructional material. So ito po, this is a campaign that we conceptualized over the past 2.5 years, and finally, meron na po kaming na-develop na approach para po matulungan ng ating mga guro na makapag-assess nung pagtuturo natin ng certain science topics. So ito po, abangan niyo po yan kasi these will be materials that will be freely available po sa mga guro at pwede niyo pong gamitin sa inyong mga klase. And then we will cap the session by going into the specifics of our PISA-based assessment. So Ian, Mhar will deliver that. Okay, so next slide please, IMG. So siguro po question lang, siguro sa group, sa Zoom chat, tanong ko lang po, sino po sa atin sa ating mga participants ang familiar po sa PISA or the Program for International Student Assessment? Makiki-raise po ng inyong hand. Kung sino po sa ating ayan, sino pong aware dyan sa PISA? Mukhang wala masyado. Meron po tayo, okay. We have quite a, medyo konti po, no? Si Ma'am Noida, she's aware of it. Si Ma'am Nikki Mendoza, si Ma'am Paloma, si Sir Jose Perez, and si Sir Zendel Barameda. Okay, medyo dumadami-dami naman. Pero ito po, so para po dun sa mga hindi masyadong aware, so PISA po stands for the Program for International Student Assessment, and ito po yung pinakamalaking international program para po pagkumparahin yung performance ng mga estudyante sa iba't ibang parte ng comparative assessment of education in the world. And in 2018 po, 600,000 students all over the world took this test. And those 600,000 students represent about 32 million 15-year-olds from 79 participating countries. So actually po yung pagpili nila dito ay 79 mid-income to high-income countries. And the Philippines is one of them. So the Philippines was represented in this assessment. Next, IMG. Okay, so yung pong assessment na ito focuses on reading comprehension, science, mathematics. Yung pong ng ating educational system, ano po. And ilan po ba, sino-sino po ba, ilan po ba galing Pilipinas na nag-participate dito? So, 7,233 students participated in 2018, and these students come from 187 schools. And kumbaga sa sampling po, since this is a study, ito pong mga estudyante na to represent 1.4 million Filipino students who are 15 years old, and 68% of the total population of 15 years old in the country, I believe. Ayun po. So, di ba, represented ng Philippines, they took this assessment, essentially test, parang achieve comprehension, science, and math. Ano po ba ang resulta? So, next slide, please. Okay. So, unfortunately, Filipino students scored low in the 2018 PISA assessment. So dito po sa pinapakita ko po sa inyo na plot, yung blue bars po dito, yun po yung average PISA score. So lahat na nag-take na students yun yung average PISA score. Yung yellow bar, yun po yung minimum score to pass. And then yun pong red bar, yun po yung performance ng Filipino students. Comprehension, hindi po tayo pasado, yung average performance. Pagdating sa math, medyo mas mataas-taas ng konti ng score, 353, pero hindi pa rin po tayo umabot doon. And then sa science po, actually science, yung pinakamataas sa atin na score, hindi pa rin po tayo pasado when it comes in comparison to the rest of the countries whose 15-year-old students participated in this assessment. So medyo hindi pala medyo nakakalungkot po ito. And then, next slide please. Kung makikita niyo po, what PISA did was they plotted the score of the Philippines against all of the participating countries, and yun pong blue dot dyan, makikita niyo po, yun po yung average performance ng mga participating countries, ano po, pag in-average lahat-lahat. So ano po ba ang mga nakikita natin dito? Pagdating po sa mean score po sa reading, ano tayo, pinakamababa po ang Pilipinas. Math, second to the lowest po ang Pilipinas. And the same holds true for science, second to the lowest po. So medyo nakakadurog po ito ng pusong makita. And we would also like to share with you the fact that ito pong meron po itong 6 na proficiency level. So mamaya po ipapakita ni IMG yun sa Bloom's taxonomy. Unfortunately, most Filipino students po ay nandun lang sa proficiency level number 2, so parang awareness lang siya. So they're aware of topics, they can relate it to certain science or math ideas, but then majority of Filipino students are unable to think critically. Hindi po sila masyadong creative. So yung higher order thinking skills sa tinatawag natin, kulang na kulang po tayo doon. And this is a very pressing matter. Kasi po, ito ay mga bagay na pwede nating mabago sa basic education level. And that's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why we're having this webinar. And that is the very main reason why we are launching Filipino Science Hub's PISA-based modules or supplementary instructional materials. Okay, next slide please. Hindi pa po dyan nagtatapos ang kumbaga medyo hindi magandang mga numero. So out of the 79 countries, the Philippines ranked 79. So 'di ba, ang Pilipino feels international competitions of so kahit namang field yan, proud Pinoy number 1. Dito po number 1 po tayo sa pinakamababa. And I think this is something that we should not be proud of, and this is something that I'm hoping yun pong ating mga educators and students who are in this call would take with you as a grand challenge po na in whichever way you can contribute to the education of our students, gawin po natin. Ito po, meron pa tayong mga detailed ranking dito. So sinabi ko na kanina dun sa plot, number 79 sa reading comprehension, sciences, and pakitang statistic kanina doon sa plot ay 1 in every 5 Filipino students passed. So ibig sabihin po, 80% na bumagsak. So 8 sa kada 10 Pilipinong nag-take ng exam na yun na estudyante ay hindi po pumasa. Nakakalungkot po ito. So pero marami po tayong magagawa. Hindi po tayo kumbaga malulugmok diyan sa masamang kumbaga nakakalungkot na mensahe na yan. There's a lot of things that we can do, but we have to start working now and we have to start working together. So ito po, yun pong PISA assessment, it's not all about performance and reading comprehension, math and sciences. This was also an opportunity. They had conducted a survey. But I would like to draw your attention po dun sa rightmost entry dito sa plot na to. So it's a question para sa mga estudyante. Ang tanong po dito, so naniniwala ka ba na yung intelligence level mo ngayon ay hindi na magbabago? Yan po yung question. Intelligence is something that can change very much. So napakababa po ng score ng mga batang Pilipino dyan. Actually, about 70% of the Filipino students who were asked that question believe that hindi na mababago yung talino nila. And this has something to do with their growth mindset. And sa totoo lang po, hindi naman totoo yun. Kasi sa totoo lang ang tao, yung nature versus nurture, so your environment, if your environment fosters your development, definitely yung talino mo and yung skill level mo mababago yan. So ito po, these are all alarming insights from the PISA assessment na para po sa ating mga guro, I highly encourage you to, kumbaga po, build within your students. So dapat po bukod sa performance sa test, we should also be motivating them. Kasi kapag meron tayong tamang intervention at kapag encouraging ang ating environment. All right. Next. Okay, so at this point po, napakita ko na po sa inyo yung ating grand challenge. And so, what Filipino Science Hub is doing at, since we became aware of this, ay gumagawa po kami ng interventions that are freely accessible sa ating mga guro para po, kumbaga, ma-equip kayo ng mga ideas, tools, and skills para po mas ma-prepare natin ang ating mga estudyante, not just for PISA, but essentially po to elevate yung kanilang competency sa STEM fundamentals, and then hindi lang magtapos doon, hindi lang sa'yo natututo sila sa loob ng klase, but then, kumbaga, na-apply nila sa labas. And so, today po, we requested Dr. Aldrin Bonto from De La Salle University to share quite a bit about like what he knows about STEM teaching assessment strategy. So by the way po, so Dr. Aldrin Bonto, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science majoring in chemistry teaching from Philippine Normal University. So PNU is one of the leading pedagogical universities in the Philippines. So solid yung background niya dyan. But then he took up his PhD in chemistry at De La Salle University, and now he's a teaching faculty there. So nagtuturo siya, and at the same time, he performs research, I think in serial chemistry. So he's, kumbaga, dalawang hats po ang kanyang sinusuot. So a professor and educating yung college level students ng De La Salle University, and he also performs his independent research. And we're also very happy to say that Aldrin is part of Filipino Science Hub. So meron din siyang advocacy work, trying to pay forward to the Filipino people. So at this point, I would like to transfer to hand the floor to Dr. Aldrin Bonto.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So that's a nice introduction, Sir Jeff. So, okay, so let me share my slide. Ayan. So, do you see the slide? Kindly type 1 if you see the slide in the chat box. Ayan. Thank you very much for those who are participating. Okay, so technically, I will be talking about the first part of this talk. And please mute your mic and close your camera. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this one, I'll be talking about the basic part of what is assessment all about. So the first part of my talk will be fundamentals and importance of assessment. So ano ba magiging basihan natin for assessment? So again, we need to go back to our standard. And the standard is the PPST, or the Philippine Professional Standards for Teacher. And what is PPST? So technically, noong 2017, this is already signed by the former Secretary of Department of Education. So technically, we will have the national adaptation and implementation of the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. Okay, so what is this technically all about? So technically, it's a public statement. It has 4 stages, and it has a 7 domain. And what are those domains? Okay, so these are the 7 domains, but what is important in this talk will be the number 5, which is assessment and reporting. So before we go to what is assessment all about, or we're going to define it, I kindly ask the participant to type, when you hear the word assessment, what words or word come out from your mind? Kaya isang word lang po, 1 or 2, when you hear the word assessment. Okay, we have the exam, we have evaluation, exams, testing, test. Okay, judgment, measurement, measure, ayan, intervention, test. And I think when you were in your undergrad, especially if you're as education major, you have the course measurement and evaluation. So technically dito natin pinag-aaralan how to construct exam and how to interpret the assessment of those exams. Okay, another thing here, collection of data, measure of learners' achievements. So let's now define what do we mean by assessment. So assessment, by definition, is a continuous and systematic process. So it means it's a continuous, technically it's a cyclic process and a systematic because there's a step-by-step procedure if we're going to assess student. And it's a collection, technically, of qualitative and quantitative information designed to improve, demonstrate, and inquire about students' learning. Question, bakit there's the term qualitative and quantitative? Qualitative, there's a description kasi we need to give feedback to our students if they're really learning. Quantitative, because most of the time assessment will also be used in research that has a numerical value. So we can now determine, di ba, pag nagbibigay tayo ng summative examination or summative assessment, we have the idea, okay, below the mean ang score ng students ko. Ano kayang ibig sabihin nun? Or sometimes in our evaluation course, there's a skew to the left or skew to the right. Ayan, so parang review natin sa measurement and evaluation. Okay, so what is the number 5 recommended by the PPST? So we have here, first, we need to apply a variety of assessment tools and strategies. So hindi na tayo the old way that we just do a summative examination, paper, and test. So sometimes, like the next speaker will show to you that there are authentic assessment that we can really assess the students' learning. And another thing is we need to use the assessment data in variety of ways to inform and enhance the teaching and learning process and programs. And lastly, we need to give a necessary feedback about learning outcomes to our students. So that's technically the 3 main reasons why we do assessment. Now, there's a question here. What is an effective classroom assessment? Kasi of course, I think all of us are teachers or education students or practitioners, we're always doing assessments. We are always giving tests to our student. After our lesson, we give exam. Or before, we technically, in our class, we have the diagnostic, the formative, and the summative type of assessment. Pero most of the time, we give the exams at the latter part para ma-assess natin if the students are learning or if the student really understand our section or our lesson. Okay, so what are the effective classroom assessment? First, one of the characteristic is the assessment should match the content and performance objective. Please be reminded that when we're giving exam, for example, our topic is atom, we need to assess the student if they really know or if they really learn about atom, not about molecule. So sometimes there is a mismatch that is happening. Hindi nagtutugma. Parang sa figure na to. This one, there's my pointer. Ayan. So there is mismatch between the two. And sometimes the student really don't have a lower score because they are answering differently kasi nga, for example, this person, example, that question is, what do you see? This boy or this person is seeing a snake. So it means here, there is technically a mismatch between your objectives or learning competencies with your assessment. So here, you're going to adapt methods to fit your class rather than simply using a method and techniques from others. Okay, so another characteristics is this one. So it must be formative. So the main purpose of classroom assessment is to improve the learning in progress by providing teachers with feedback. So example, I think most of the time naman when we're doing social media, even the social media is asking us if the social media is working well. Di ba yung Facebook, may makikita kayong star, Even when you do Shopee or Lazada, you're going to have their star if you have a good product, or if you have a good if you experience a good delivery of your products, diba? So similar to that, we also need to give feedbacks. So by providing teachers with feedbacks on their teaching effectiveness and student comprehension. Example, most of your student has a high score, then you're going to reflect, di ba? Am I teaching properly? Or sobrang dali lang ng examination ko, kaya sila mataas yung score. Or sometimes naman, sobrang baba ng student, mag-iisip ka eh, saan kaya ako nagkamali? Or saan kaya ako kailangan mag-improve? So that's the one of the effective classroom assessment. Another one is the assessment activities should consider the learner's race, gender, learning needs, learning style, language learning, abilities and disabilities, cultural background, and socioeconomic status. This image is well used in education. For example, the teacher wants to assess his or her student. And in here, you can see for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. But the question is, or the command is, please climb the tree. Now you're going to ask, is this the proper way to assess your students? Again, diversity, students have different learning style, different learning abilities, and you need to have an assessment that caters those students. Kaya nga, pupunta na tayo sa more authentic way of assessment. And we all know the one that will have the advantage here is the monkey, because the monkey is the one that can climb the tree. And if the fish will go out from the pond or into the aquarium, the fish will die. Number one is it builds a culture of success in the classroom. So here, you need to use a range of assessment methods. So, ito pa lang, plural pa lang, assessment methods and activities. So, hindi lang pwedeng palaging paper and test or paper and test type yung ating examination or ang ating assessment tool to our students' learning. So, here, we're going to apply approaches that really assess the student's ability, lalo na if you want to assess the higher thinking skills of the student. Possibly kasi mataas yung score nila kasi they memorize everything, but they are just using those memorized thing in the lower thinking skills and not in the higher one. So demonstrate their learning on the on the knowledge, understanding, skills, values defined in the curriculum to achieve a culture of success. Okay, so we have a question here. So as a teacher, as an educator, we need to ask ourselves which technique is appropriate to answer questions and not which questions are appropriate to fit the assessment technique. Another characteristics is this one. Ito, madami to. When I'm first practitioner of teaching, sometimes wag naiinis si teacher, nagbibigay ng exam. So take 1 sheet of paper, then quiz tayo kasi nga magulo yung class. Again, assessment will not be used for class management, but rather it's used for assessing learning, di ba? So assessment of learning should never be used as punishment or as a disciplinary measure. So we have here the question, how will knowing the answer to these questions help improve my students' learning? Diba? So, example, alam ng students yung sagot. Pero the next question is, do they have really an understanding to that questions? And another to keep in mind, if an assessment is worth doing, it's worth teaching students how to engage in the process of or in a meaningful way. Okay, so another characteristics of an effective classroom assessment is it emphasizes real-world application that favors realistic performance over out of context drills items. So again, here, eto na papasok yung ating authentic assessment. Kasi nga, in authentic assessment, we can now emphasize or we can now connect the student to the world beyond the paper and test or beyond multiple choice type of examination. So in applying this real world application, it enhances the student's learning by how? So first, focusing attention on what was taught, engaging deep processing and connecting it to other information from the learner's background kasi you will ask prior knowledge of the student, paano i-connect ng student, for example, solution, the topic is solution, how the student will connect that in their kitchen, in preparing meal. So mas authentic ngayon kasi there's you're touching the experiences of the students. And lastly, we have your encouraging metacognition, then thinking about learning and thinking. Okay. So another characteristics of effective classroom assessment is the result of the assessment must be fed back to the learners. So technically, eto tayo, sa sobrang dami nating tinuturo every day, or sometimes ang dami nating students, we tend to forget this one. Ang ibibigay na lang natin sa bata is their final grade. 'Di ba? Like, at the end of the session or at the end of the period, bibigyan natin ng 75. Now, the question is, what do 75 means? 'Di ba? Or after the exam, after the long test, mababa yung score ng student. Let's say, out of 50, he or her, she got, let's say, 26. Ngayon, from that number, we need to give a meaning from that. And that's the reason why we need to give feedback to students. So, saan sila nahihirapan? Ano pang lesson yung kailangan nilang i-improve? Or what are the topics that they need to nagpo-focus si teacher? Okay. So, here, telling them what they have done well. So, positive feedback to the students. Again, remember there's always a room for improvement. So even though your student is very intellectual or they are getting high scores, there's always what they need to improve. And another thing is how they will improve it. So you will give feedback to your students na these are the things that you can do. Example, you are having problem in mathematical processing or problem solving, you need to give them more exercise on that part. Okay, here this is what we call the cycle of effective classroom assessment. So we have here the feed forward, feed up, and feedback. So let's now digest these three. Okay, so here the first one is the feedback. So how am I going? So it's a reflection, reflective. It's the reason why there's also the reflective learning for the student. So beyond the cognition, we also touching the affective side. So first, we need to check for understanding. Then, how about the feed up? So feed up is to understand the learning targets, and the feed forward is close the gap. So let's now deal one by one. So what do we mean by feedback? So feedback is we give feedback for improvement. So provide information, not judgmental, feedback to students so they know how to improve their achievement of the 21st century learning goals. And also, they need to evaluate. So there's an evaluation of the strength and weaknesses of the student. So giving them on-the-spot feedback, so reteaching if it's needed, kung masyadong mababa yung scores of the class, and engaging students in self-assessment and self-regulation. How about the feed up, where I am going? So, alam na ng bata kung ano yung kanyang mga, what you call this one, alam na niya yung kanyang needs to improve. Ngayon, there must be the understand the learning targets. So, clearly articulate what are the learning goals and what constitutes a good work. Then produce a target-driven work. So giving students assignment that matches the 21st century learning targets and helping them identify the next step in learning improvement. And lastly, compare performance with learning targets. So you need to use rubrics and other tools to communicate the student's level of proficiency and areas of improvement. So pwede kasing you are, kailangan ng bata kasi kung nasaan na siyang direction eh. So after giving them the feedback, they need now to be directed. Saan ba talaga tayo pupunta? And lastly, we need now to have the forward. Where to next? And like what I said, there's a gap. Diba? There are always room for improvement for students, and we need to fill that gap. So how will we close the gap? So working with students to close the gap between the 21st century performance goal and the current performance work and work products. Then we have here anchored on culminating performance, assessing tasks and projects. And lastly, we need to have culminating tasks and projects that genuinely transfer of key competencies and require students to engage in authentic real-world performance. Now, ano ba yung sinasabi ko palagi na 21st century assessment or the 21st century performance goal? Ano yung target ba natin na ang student natin ay maging what? Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of a 21st century learner. And I think one of what the PISA or technically PISA is recommending for the students to have a higher critical thinking skills. They also have to be a problem solver, a good communicator, globally aware of not only in this present situation, but also in his surrounding, his or her surrounding, a self-directed learner, an innovator, and a collaborator. And one of the thing that a first century learner also has is like what Sir Jeff is always telling, students need to have a growth mindset. Okay, so I already introduced the group with the fundamentals of assessment. Let's now go to how will we incorporate or how will we improve the traditional way. Yan. So paper and test. So how will we improve our paper and test assessment? Okay, let me share again my slide. Okay, question. Kindly type 1 if you can see the slide. The title is Improving Test Construction. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for the second part of my talk, I'll be talking about how we will okay, thank you very much for those who are participating. So how we will improve test construction in a multiple choice test. So technically, ang focus ko is more in the paper and test. And the type of examination is multiple choice. How we will improve our multiple choice. Kasi minsan, mismo sa exam natin, kaya mababa yung score ng students is because we have a problem in kindly mute your sorry. Okay, thank you very much. So sometimes when we are giving multiple choice exam, yung multiple choice mismo is nakakalito, kaya bumababa yung score. The student knows the answer, but the delivery of the question confused the student. Okay. So what are the stages ba of preparing an assessment? Okay, so we have here an assessment instrument. So we have here 4 stages, but I'll be talking about only the 2. So first is the planning stage and the test construction. So how do we plan an exam? Any idea from the group? How do we plan an exam? What do you think? Ano kayong ginagawa pag first stage? I think everyone is doing exams or preparing examination. We're drafting a lot of exam. Pero ano kaya ang first part or first stage? And you type, what do you think is comprising the first stage? Okay, very good. Ayan. So the teachers really knows the answer. Ayan, ang mahiwagang TOS or Table of Specifications. Very good. So the first part is we need to have the table of specifications. Let's now continue. Okay, so this is technically the first or the first stage or the planning stage. First, we have to specify the objectives and content areas to be measured. We need to make sure that the exam is really, example, you want to assess students with solution. Tapos it's a grade 7, it's grade 7. And based from the learning competencies, wala pang molarity in that grade 7. So it's just percent, let's say percent volume, volume per volume or mass per volume pa lang. So when you're making the table of specification, or kasi the second part is preparing the table of specification, it must be aligned to the objectives or learning competencies. And the third part is you need to decide the type of the test. So what is the typical form of a table of specification or the mahiwagang TOS? We have here the TOS. So here you can see the objective based from your lesson. And we have this one. So meron tayong remember, understand, apply, and analyze. And we have here the number of items per each of the levels of learning. Okay, so let's have a short quiz or test. What do you mean? What this for all about? So remember, understand, analyze, apply, and analyze. It belongs to what? It belongs to what concept? Ayan, very good. So we have the Bloom's taxonomy. And so technically, the educators really know how to make a TOS, and it's always anchored to the Bloom's taxonomy. So what is Bloom's taxonomy? So ayan. So these are the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So you have the remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And this will be explained well by the next speaker. So the table of the Bloom's taxonomy pa lang, you can determine what is the lots and what's the hats. Thank you very much for those who answered Bloom's taxonomy and the revised Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. So let's now go to the second stage. So we already know the objectives, tapos we already know we already prepared the TOS, and we choose already our type of exam. Now we need to write or we need to create. So the stage 2 is about test construction or item writing stage. So the first part will be writing of test items based on the TOS. And the second part is you need to consult with experts. And most of the time we have the master teachers, we have our head that will double check or proofread our work. Okay, so first of all, we need to have the validity of our test. Okay, so we have here what we call the principle of content validity. So what do you mean by principle of content validity? So in the principle of content validity, we need to measure what the test intends to measure. In the figure ABC, which do you think represents a valid or a content, or technically symbolizes or illustrate the valid test constructed test? Ayan, so we have here letter, ayan, very good. So we have letter C. So we're hitting the target. So remember, in content, this one is invalid kasi you're not, technically, your exam is about solution, pero ang binigay mong exam is already about gases. So mismatch. And it's not part of your learning competencies or your objectives. This one naman is also invalid because you're not hitting the right target. Eto, magulo yung pag-prepare mo ng exam, halo-halo. This one, you're preparing about gases, pero ang topic talaga is solution. And letter C illustrates the correct one, that you have a valid exam. So a test is valid when it measures what it is intended to measure. Like what I said in the beginning, I'll just be focusing in multiple choice exam. So this is an example of a question. So we have here, what is always a characteristic of a solution that contains a buffer? Now, what are the parts of exam? Ayan, so let mag-test muna si Sir Aldrin. So, what do we call the question? Any idea from the group? So, what do we call, there's a term for it. In your preparing a multiple choice exam, it technically has two parts. Very good. Ayan, so may nakasagot. The stem. Okay. So here, this is the stem or our question. How about this part? What do we call this one? Any idea from the group? Options. Sometimes called responses. Sometimes also called structures. Okay, so for this one, we have technically the second part or the responses has two parts. The first part will be the destructors. For these choices, A, B, C is the destructors or the alternative, and the correct answer is the key. So here in this question, the correct answer is letter D. So it answers the solution resists the large changes in pH when small amounts of acid and bases are added. So most of our not most, all of my examples is chemistry based because I'm a chemistry major. Okay, another one, there are two formats for multiple choice exam. First, we have a direct question. And the second one is we have the incomplete statement. So for here, the direct question is what are the three primary particles found in an atom? Tapos in an incomplete statement, so it technically direct question, a question type. This one is a statement type. Tapos most of the time we place blank here. And these are the choices. So again, most of the time we make these two types. Okay. Also, there are varieties of multiple choice items. So first, we have the single correct answer, best answer, and combined response. Okay, for the correct answer, these are the following criteria. Only one correct answer, the alternative are all incorrect. So isa lang tamang sagot natin. Then the student is directed to identify the correct answer. For an example, we have this one. So what term is used to describe atoms of the same element that have different masses? Okay, my question here is, what do you think are the destructors? Not the correct answer. Ayan, so let's see. Ayan, may pa-quiz agad si Sir Aldrin na aga-aga. What is the destructors in our choices? Okay, very good. Ayan, so we have the correct answer. So technically the correct answer is letter C. We have here the isotopes. So this is our key. Then we have here our destructors. Very good. Okay, next. Okay, so this one is another example of a single correct answer. Here, we have the stem. Our destructors are A, B, C, and this is our key. Another type or another variety of multiple choice type of exam is the best answer. So it has the alternative differs in degree of correctness. So technically all of them are correct. There's just a degree of correctness. One is clearly more correct than others. And the best alternative serve as the answer. Okay, so this is the question. The solution of a solute is best described as which of the following? So we need to find the correct answer. What do you think is the best answer here? All of them is correct. The ability of solute to dissolve in water, the ability of solute to dissociate into ions when dissolved in water, the mass of solute necessary to dissolve 1 liter, the maximum amount of solute that can be dissolved in a specified amount of solvent, and lastly, the mole of solute that can dissolve in 1 liter of solution. So technically, all of these are correct, but there is a degree of correctness. And the most correct answer, or the best choice, is letter what? Okay, so it's letter D. So this one is an example of a best answer variety. Another example is this. You can also do not only statement form, but also illustration form. So which diagram best represents the composition of aqueous calcium chloride solution? Water molecules are not shown. So technically, all of this has a degree of correctness, but which is the best illustration? Remember, it's CaCl2. So it means you have 2Cl negative. And the white represents the calcium, the black represents the Cl, and the correct answer, or the best choice, is letter B. Because there are 2 calcium, 2 positive, and you have 4 Cl negative. Okay, and another best answer variety is like this. So you can pick. Okay, for the best answer variety, sorry, 1 or more alternatives are correct, and the student is directed to identify the correct answer or answers by selecting one of the set of letters. So this one is organic. So the question is, will therefore have the same chemical properties? And I think the correct answer here is letter. So you have 2 answers here. So this is, they're both ketone group. Ayan. So the correct answer is A and D. And it's letter A. So meron kang 2 alternatives that are considered correct. Okay, the next part will be how we will improve now our multiple choice test. Okay, so how do we improve our STEM, or how do we improve our distractors or responses? Okay, first, the problem should be clearly stated in the STEM. Eto, most of the time, I experienced this when I was undergrad or high school then. So here we have here the term, the STEM is conformational isomers. The question now is what? The students don't know what do you want to know. So how will you assess? Diba? So first, you need to clearly state that the STEM. And how we will clearly state the STEM, we need to have the question. Kasi ang student dito, anong gusto ni sir malaman about conformational isomers? So here we can improve it in terms of this kind of STEM. Choose the option that most accurately characterize molecules that are related as conformational isomers, or which of the following best describes conformational isomers. At least in this kind of STEM, there is a question. Unlike in the prior, hindi alam ng student ano yung gusto mong malaman. Another one is include as much of the item as possible in the STEM while excluding any irrelevant material. Ayan. This one is quite long, di ba? Which of the following statement about bench shape is true? And these are the choices. And you can see that there are commonality in our choices. First, the question is about the bench shape. There you have here the central atom, you have the pairs of electron, you have the bond angle here. At all of that part is repetitive in our distractors. So for us to make a better or an improved version, we can rephrase the question. In molecule AX2, the central atom A has 2 lone pairs of electrons in addition to the 2 bond pairs in the AX bonds. The question now is, what is the shape and bond angle of this molecule? Ayan. So we can now have an improved version. So in this improved version, the students are now directed. Unlike in the prior, medyo yung mismong question is mahaba, at the same time, nagkakaroon ng confusion yung bata. Another one is negative items and even the positive items should be can be underlined, can be italics, boldface, or capitals. I think one of the example here is the positive is true. So you can see here that the true is capitalized. Ayan. So this one, which of the following is not true about elements that form cation? So you have here the term not true. So this is a negative item. Or if it's true, or pwede rin namang, if it's true, the true is the capital one. Okay, so here is how we'll now improve our responses or our distractors. First, we can arrange them, arrange alternatives in a logical order. It's either numerical, it's either alphabetical, or sequential. This one is a good example of increasing number. 4 to 10. So there's an increase in the value of the number, magnitude of the number. Or you can also arrange them in terms of alphabetical order. And another one is avoid the alternatives, all of the above and none of the above. Kasi most of the time, yun yung tamang sagot. So nangyayari is nagiging tama yung students kasi hinuhulaan lang nila. So they're just guessing that when they see the all of the above and none of the above, that's the correct answer. So as much as possible, avoid these alternatives. Okay, so let's have a practice. So how will we improve this one? Okay, what is the ground state electronic configuration of a fluorine atom? And you can see here, they are repetitive, diba? You can see the 1s, the 2s, the 2p. Okay. How will we improve this one? So let's show the improved version. Ayan, the ground state, the ground electronic configuration of a carbon atom is 1s2, 2s2, 2p, then the blank. And the student now can easily pick. So instead of showing all of the electron configuration, pwede nyo na ipakita si 1s2, 2s2, then 2p and the electron missing there. Yan, the improved version. Another one is which of the following, ayan, this one, you can transform this into this form. That the correct answer is, so instead of using the distractors as part of the distractors, you can add them to the stem. And in this kind of type of multiple choice, mas mag-iisip yung student. Kasi nga, the distractors here help a lot with the thinking process of the student, which is which. And this one is the improved version. Okay, so I would like to acknowledge, so that's the end of my presentation. So I'd like to acknowledge my professors in PNU. So we have Professor Crisanta Ocampo, Ma'am Vic Marie Camacho, and Dr. Mhar. So they're my former education teachers. And I asked them about this topic kasi medyo nag-shift ako ng serial chem. And also, I attend a webinar of Dr. John Delgado of UST and about workshop on test construction, which I get the idea about this presentation. Again, thank you for listening. Hi, Sir Jeff.
All right. Would you mind introducing our next speaker, Aldrin?
Okay, so let me stop my sharing. Okay, I would like to introduce the next speaker. So this is a colleague of mine in PhilSci Hub, a very young, vibrant educator. I think he will be one of our leading science educator in the near future. So our next speaker is Sir Ian Mhar Gabriel, or Sir IMG. Aguila is BS Mathematics Science Teaching Major in Biology at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and a very young Filipino Sci-Hub module creator. Again, let me welcome Sir IMG.
And thank you so much, Sir Aldrin, sa pagpapakilala. Ayan, so magandang umaga po sa ating lahat at sa ating mga participants dito sa ating Zoom meeting. So, you can call me po IMG. Ayan, initial siya ng name ko kasi tinawag ako kanina ni Kuya Jeff na IMG. Ayan, baka magulat lang kayo. So, my discussion for this morning tackles the hots and lots and yung Bloom's taxonomy natin. So, but before that, let me share this haiku and photo by Stephanie Mohan. So, searching for answers, seek in all the wrong places, check for right questions. So, ayan, medyo kung hindi tayo familiar sa haiku, parang medyo malalim. Pero this just summarizes kung paano nga ba talaga dapat gumagawa ng assessments ang mga teachers. So, lagi kong inaalala yung tinuro sa akin ng one of my professors sa College of Public Affairs sa UPLB na begin with the end in mind. Ibig sabihin, kailangan kapag magtuturo tayo or bibigay tayo ng assessment sa ating mga students, kailangan alam natin kung ano yung gusto nating i-measure or i-evaluate sa kanila. Kaya nga po, di ba, meron tayong mga lesson plans na kung saan dapat planado lahat ng ating mga gagawin for our students. And particularly, when we talk about the learning objectives, hindi mawawala dyan yung concept ng Bloom's taxonomy. So again, this is just a refresher course nga lang po sa inyo. So some of you might know na kung ano yung Bloom's taxonomy, nakita natin kanina, ang dami nang nag-mention ng answer na Bloom's taxonomy. So most of you are familiar with. So pasadahan lang po natin, no? So we have different levels of skills and knowledge when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy. So pinakamababa dito yung remembering part where the students typically memorize, identify knowledge. So nandito yung they find or remember the information given to them by the teachers. And the second level, we have the understanding na kung saan dito much more complex na siya sa remembering, but this is just students interpreting, summarizing information. And on the next level, we have this na yung applying na kung saan ginagamit na nung bata yung information na nabigay to relate to similar forms like using diagrams, chart, interpretations, ayan. And then we have this three higher level aside from the three lower, yung analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So for the analyzing, students take into apart and explore relationships. So dito, students have a chance to really examine yung information and create arguments based on evidences. And when we go to the evaluating part naman, ito na yung papasok na dito yung kanina pang sinasabi ni na Sir Jeff at ni Sir Aldrin, yung medyo critical thinking part na ng students where they judge, critique, test, defend, and criticize the information given to them. And last but not the least, ito yung pinaka-favorite ko as a student. And feeling ko kapag naging teacher na din ako katulad po ninyo, ito yung pinaka-gusto kong ipagawa sa mga students ko, yung creating part. Kasi this is the highest form of learning based sa Bloom's taxonomy where the students use the information to create something new. So imagine when you ask students to create something, yung active part nila, like active engagement sa part ng students, nandun. That's why this is the highest form of learning. So makikita natin, medyo divided siya. The three are located sa taas and yung other three ay sa baba. So we have the hots and lots na tinatawag. So baka para po sa ating mga participants, baka kaya nyo i-define yung hots and lots, makikichat sa ating chat box. Ano nga ba itong HATs and LATs, and bakit ba natin to kailangan pag-usapan ngayong umaga na ito. So, ayan. So, LOTs and HATs. So, yung LOTs natin, yung tinatawag natin na lower order thinking skills, which includes the remembering, understanding, and applying natin. And then, the HATs naman yung higher order thinking skills, yung analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So, generally, the LOTs includes the assessments which are targets the thinking skills ng students na basic, parang more on the memorization part, ganun. And then the HATs, dito na papasok yung critical thinking part ng students where they actively engage with the assessment and they create, evaluate, and analyze given the evidences given to them. And ayun, dito mas nakikita yung part ng critical thinking ng mga students natin. And yeah, that's why we have the HATs and LATs in assessment. So basically, these are equally important in creating learning objectives. So syempre kapag gumagawa tayo ng mga activities, assessments sa ating mga students, kailangan, di ba, hindi po yan mawawala sa ating lesson plan, yung mga learning objectives. So at the end of this discussion, the student should be able to, so we should identify kung ano dapat matutunan nila. And kailangan mabase natin yun dun sa mostly sa ating Bloom's taxonomy pinabase. And these HATs and LATs are the basis in forming different assessments for students since nakalagay nga sila sa ating learning objectives, yung mga verbs. Kaya kailangan we should be mindful of the verbs that we use. Like for example, evaluate or demonstrate, yung mga ganong bagay. Kasi ito yung magiging basis natin in creating yung activities na ibibigay natin sa mga students natin. And last but not the least, HATs and LATs in assessment guide teachers in identifying the level of understanding that their students will acquire towards the end of every topic or discussion. So ayun, katulad ng sabi ko kanina, begin with the end in mind. So kailangan teachers should identify muna yung level of understanding na gusto nilang ma-attain ng bata after having the discussion or the topic. So, pero bakit, kung mapapansin natin, bakit kung na-browse nyo na po yung mga lecture videos sa Facebook page namin, most of our modules incorporate more HATs. And this was based on the figure above. So Filipino students attained an average score of 357 points in scientific literacy, which is nabanggit na din ni Sir Jeff kanina, which was significantly lower than the OECD average of 489 points. So nakakalungkot po isipin kasi even though we have this K-12 program na and we are implementing the spiral curriculum sa ating science, which tackles the 4 fields, the biology, chemistry, physics, and the earth science. So, parang may kulang pa rin, may gaps pa rin na na-observe yung PISA report natin. And for the next slide, scientific literacy is seen as a crucial skill since this includes the capacity to analyze scientific phenomena, evaluate and design scientific inquiry, and interpret facts and evidence. So, sino po dito ang sa aling part ng Bloom's taxonomy kaya natin makakategorize itong mga naka-underline and naka-bold na skills, yung analyze, evaluate, and then pag-interpret ng facts and evidence. Sa HATs po kaya or sa LATs? So, pwede pong i-type sa ating chat box. Ayan. So, mapapansin natin na itong words natin na analyze, evaluate, and pag-interpret ng facts and evidence, lahat yan pasok sa ating HATs. That's why, based din sa report ng PISA, we should work with that aspect ng ating assessment. And again, according to PISA, we should evaluate our students not just by what they know, but also based on what they can do with what they know. For example, an example for this is yung nasa picture po natin. Currently, marami from different schools ay nagko-conduct nung ating for the earthquake drill, mga earthquake drills natin. So, di ba, kapag tinuro lang natin sa mga bata natin, sa mga students natin, ano yung dapat gawin kapag nag-earthquake drill through just discussion or discussing it. So, alam lang nila, pero ano ba ang mahalaga? Of course, yung ma-apply nila kung ano yung nalalaman nila regarding that information. So kaya maganda na may mga earthquake drills din tayo because students can really demonstrate kung ano ba yung natutunan nila with that kind of information, not just by just knowing that. And higher order thinking skills go beyond basic memorization. So HOTS promotes critical thinking skills of the students. So naalala ko po, example for this is the table of elements. Ayan. Nung high school ako, pinapamemorize lahat ng elements sa amin nung biology, chemistry prof ko. And may mga mnemonics pa like halina, kerubi, sespa. So kung may mga tips kayo or tips or mnemonics na meron sa table of elements, you can share po dito sa ating chat box kasi ang daming mga pakulo ng mga science teachers natin when it comes to teaching this table of elements. So nakakatuwa. So you can share that po sa ating chat box. Pero yon based on my experience, talagang inisa-isa namin yan. Pero ang question dito is, after natin ma-memorize, after maalaman ng mga students kung ano ba yung atomic mass, atomic number, nung ating mga elements, and then what they can do with that knowledge. So kailangan we can adapt dun sa needs ng ating PISA report and or needs ng 21st century skills nga natin na nabanggit na din is na Sir Aldrin kanina, yung critical thinking part ng mga students. So instead of just memorizing natin yung mga students with these elements, kailangan mag-tweak tayo, kumbaga, ng very, very light lang. So maybe we can ask them to discuss how the elements can be both essential and harmful to life. So by asking them to do this, they will of course magre-research yung mga bata. Paano nga ba itong mga elements na to ay essential and harmful sa ating buhay? So dito magiging active yung role ng students, not just by passively memorizing all the elements. So maganda na on this part, students are able to critically think, analyze, and interpret information or report kung ano man yung natutunan nila doon sa table of elements. Ayan. And with that, may note lang tayo dito kasi yun nga nabanggit natin na maraming HOTS-based assessments sa aming PhilSci Hub modules. But take note that HOTS and LOTS work hand in hand. So they should be balanced. So kailangan hindi mas maraming HOTS compare sa LOTS or kaya naman puro LOTS at kokonti or wala ng HOTS-based na assessment. So kailangan sa lahat ng bagay naman, 'di ba? Kailangan laging balance siya. And another note is that transitioning from LOTS to HOTS-based assessments will help students in gradually thinking more complexly as they discover the concepts being taught. So mapapansin nyo may scaffold dito. So parang anong nangyayari, LOTS serve as the foundation para sa ating mga bata na matutulungan sila na if ever dumating yung part or yung assessments na HOTS-based, mas madali na nila itong masasagutan. So, parang ganito lang siya, parang sa isang architecture or sa isang bahay, di ba? Kapag mahina po yung foundation, di yata nagpi-play yung video yan. Kapag mahina yung foundation ng isang architecture or ng bahay, di ba? May possibility na gumuho siya. And an example for this that I may share is yung concepts about sa biology or sa ecology. Kasi nung high school and elementary, di ba, we teachers and of course yung topic ay more on defining the key terms. And pag dumating na yung mga students natin sa higher level, for example, ako po, nung grade 7 to grade 10, very minimal lang yung knowledge or information na nakuha ko doon sa topic na ito kasi parang more on defining the terms lang. But nung dumating na tayo sa college level, medyo need na to level up, like to integrate these concepts by adding interdisciplinarity. So parang medyo nahirapan ako adapting kasi, ayun nga, the lesson here is that as early as elementary and high school, students should be able to integrate these concepts, this knowledge, nang sa ganon, when they go beyond dun sa level nila, for example, nagre-research na sila, they have an easy access dun sa pag-integrate ng information na to. Kasi we really need to step up based nga dun sa reports given to us earlier na we should try to improve the critical thinking skills ng mga students natin. And kung mapapansin natin, yung Bloom's taxonomy, it targets the cognitive domain or cognitive part ng students natin. And wag din sana po natin kalimutan yung affective and psychomotor domain or part ng mga students sapagkat with this, mas nagiging well-rounded yung students natin. So for the affective domain, this encompasses yung feelings, emotions, values ng students. So on our learning objectives, maybe we can add some reflective assessments, for example, yung mga reflection papers, kasi maganda yan kasi it promotes reflective learning, di ba po? Not just on the part of the students kasi, di ba, mahalaga din sa mga teachers natin yung reflective, of course. Kapag nagtuturo tayo, di ba, we need to reflect. So, ganun din sa part ng mga students, they need to reflect on what they know. Nang sa ganun, mas identify pa nila yung mga strengths and weaknesses nila pagdating dun sa topic. And lastly, yung psychomotor domain. So, nakakatuwa po kasi ngayon pa lang, noong nag-transition tayo sa online learning setup, ang daming activities and assessments na nakikita ko na iba-iba. Like may mga pa-vlogs, may mga pa-scientific report, which, and of course, yung mga pa-TikTok. Ayan, sumikat yung mga pa-TikTok ng mga teachers natin. So, kung kayo po ay isa sa mga teachers na nagpapa-TikTok, ayan, so, napakaganda din pong way niya to engage students in a psychomotor skills na kung saan there are physical movement, coordination, and use ng kanilang motor skills. So, reminder that aside from the cognitive domain, we should also consider the affective and psychomotor domain in creating our assessments for our students. So, that's all for the Bloom's taxonomy and the importance of HATS-based assessments sa ating mga PhilSci Hub modules. And later po, after this part po ni Kuya Jeff, I will discuss naman po yung different PISA levels natin na PISA-based assessments na binibigay natin doon sa ating mga subscribers na students and teachers sa Filipino Science Hub. So ipapasok ko na po ito sa ating bossing kay Kuya Jeff. So thank you po for listening. Kuya Jeff?
Ayan, maraming salamat IMG. So ako po I'm personally proud of Ian Mhar, how he delivers, and how he shares his knowledge. And by the napakatalinong bata po, and very creative. So he's one of the very first module creators that we recruited into Filipino Science Hub. Medyo napaka-humble niyan. He's actually a magna cum laude candidate from sa UPLB. So he's about to finish his studies soon. So soon enough, pupunta na po yan sa field. Magtuturo na yan sa mga schools. But he's actually one of the young leaders in education that we're developing po sa Filipino Science Hub. So at this point, I'm actually to talk about Filipino Hub's assessment-focused instructional material. So, kanina po, napakita na po namin kanina yung report about PISA. Sir Aldrin shared quite a bit about fundamentals of STEM teaching assessment, paano yung pag-formulate ng maayos na assessment materials. And then IMG, he talked about HOTS and LOTS and yung scaffolding. Now ngayon po papasok naman kami dun sa ano ba yung project na ginawa namin. So over the past couple of years started, PhilSci Science Hub has had a fairly direct line of communication with teachers. So 2 taon kalahati na po kami lagi nakikipag-usap sa mga guro. And yung pong yung awareness na nakuha rin namin sa PISA report, it triggered us to do something. Kami po sa Filipino Science Hub, we have to do something. So we conceptualized a modules program that is focused on assessment almost exactly a year ago. And since January, nagkaroon po talaga kami ng content development workshop. So ano na po yan, 9 na buwan na po namin itong kumbaga pinaghihirapan. Every other week we meet to design our approach, and we implemented design thinking in this process. So I don't know if familiar po ang ating mga guro sa design thinking. So this is a strategy for you to essentially come up with solutions to problems, pero sometimes hindi ganun kaklaro kung ano ba talaga yung problema na kailangan mong isolve. Alam mo lang na may malaking pangangailangan. So this particular approach and coming options, it follows 5 particular steps. So empathize, define, ideate, prototyping, and testing. So dun po sa empathizing, dun sa stage na yun, you actually immerse yourself in the environment na nangangailangan po ng solusyon. Dito po, pumasok yung interactions namin sa mga guro. And usually, ang nakukuha po namin messages sa kanila ay, Sir, medyo hirap po kaming gumawa ng assessment. Nahihirapan po kami kasi ang daming administrative jobs, gagawa ka pa ng lesson plans, you have to manage yung students sa classroom. Medyo hindi na po matutukan masyado yung assessment kasi kulang na sa oras. So yun pong insights na yun, in combination with the very disappointing performance of Filipino students dun sa PISA 2018, ito po yung nag-trigger sa amin. Okay, we have to come up, first we have to define like ano ba yung problem. So una dun po sa insights from the teachers, meron pong issue with yung accessibility of instructional materials and assessment tools that would encourage mastery ng mga topics, no? Kasi hindi na po nasusukat ng mga guro. Ano ba dumalapat ba sa utak ng mga estudyante yung tinuturo? Hindi na po siya masyadong ma-measure. So yung retooling of our teachers, that's very important. So isa yun sa mga na-define namin na need. And then secondly, ibalik ko po kayo dun sa performance sa PISA. So yung Bloom's taxonomy, pinakita na ni IMG. So remembering, understanding, and then applying, and then the 3 HOTs. Doon po sa report ng PISA in 2018, hanggang ang most Filipino students, kaya po nila yung remembering, kaya rin nila yung understanding. So ibig sabihin, pag binanggit mo sa kanila yung gas law, kaya nilang kaya po ideal gas law, kaya nilang i-fit yung question doon sa formula. So aware sila doon sa kumbaga conceptual framework. Ang napansin po nila sa mga Pilipino, they don't even know how to apply yung kanilang mga natutunan, and lalong-lalo na po doon sa higher order thinking skills. So they don't know how to differentiate kung ano ba ang logical sa illogical. Hindi po nila kumbaga hindi nila ma-practice yung critical thinking. So hindi nila alam kung ano yung opinion, kung ano yung fact. So hindi po kaya nang i-verify yun ng mga estudyante nating Pilipino nag-take ng PISA. And then most importantly, hindi po nila ma-leverage yung kanilang or magamit yung kanilang mga natutunan for them to create something of value. Yung creativity, hindi po nila dito, naisip namin, if we're gonna come up with supplemental materials that would help our teachers, kumbaga, teach certain science or STEM concepts, dapat gamitin na rin natin yun as an opportunity to inculcate or to teach yung pong higher order thinking skills. So yun po yung sa define step. Now, ideation, paano yung approach? Paano yung gagawin natin? So these are just like 2 of a multitude of design considerations na ginamit po namin. So we had to ideate. Unang-una po, yung materials na dapat gagawin namin should help yung teachers. Hindi po siya dagdag na. The material should be engaging enough such that pag inilapat po yan or kumbaga in-administer ng guro, yun pong mga materials na ginagagawin namin, dapat engaging siya sa mga students. Hindi siya yung parang repeat ng lecture ni ma'am. Kasi again, dapat medyo complementary yung approach. Hindi po siya yung parang bakit parehas lang. Ba't ako gagamit ng dalawa? Isa lang naman yung kailangan ko. Now, when we did the prototyping, ang naging focus po namin was, since Filipino Science Hub is actually composed of a community of Filipino scientists from different parts of the world and of from different parts of the world, ang naisip po namin, we had to practice yung amin pong kumbaga yung aming expertise when it comes to research and development. So dapat yung solution na gagawin na na gagawin namin or ipoproduce namin, it has to be based on a clear problem. And dito na po pumasok yung gaps na na-identify ng PISA. So therefore po, yung prototypes na ginawa namin are PISA-based instructional materials na meron po talagang significant emphasis sa assessment. Para matulungan po namin kayo na meron kayong supplemental material, kumbaga pandagdag sa inyong ginagawa, opportunity na mabibigyan din po namin kayo ng access sa assessment tools na doon po papasok yung HOTS and LOTS in a fairly balanced way. So now nilolaunch na po namin ito ngayong araw na ito. So dito na po papasok yung ating test step. So napakalaki ng curriculum. Grades 3 to grade 10 sa kumbaga po sa basic education level. So we decided na yung pong materials na una namin gagawin would focus on grades 3 and 7 science topics. Bakit po ganun? Grade 3 po ang unang exposure ng mga estudyante sa science. So mahalaga po na maalagaan natin yung kanilang enthusiasm as early as possible para hindi po sila ma-discourage na, ay, ang hirap ng science, ayoko niyan. Mahirap po kasi makondisyon ang isipan ng mga bata ng ganoon. And then grade 7, yun po yung transition from elementary school puntang high school. So for some po, that could be a fairly drastic transition. So dapat maalagaan din po natin sila. So dapat maganda yung materials na gagamitin din po nila at that point. Okay, IMG. Alright, so gaya po ng sinabi ko, ito pong ginagawa namin project na to, this is, I believe, napaka-unique po nito. Kasi this is an undertaking where Filipino scientists and STEM educators, not only in the Philippines, but from different parts of the world, and collaborating para ma-design itong mga materials na ito. So by Filipino scientists and STEM educators for Filipino students. So kailangan po namin ang engagement ng mga guro. Bakit po mahalaga ito? Ako po, I am not trained as an educator, but I am a Filipino scientist. I practice science, essentially research and development, technology development and innovation on a daily basis. Sasabihin ko po sa inyo, tatanggalin natin yung kumbaga medyo maling notion ng mga tao sa atin na ay pag scientist dapat sobrang talino, dapat sobrang galing. Ay hindi po. Hindi po 'yun totoo. Actually yung pinakita po kanina ni IMG na yung scaffolding such that yung basics ay napaka-strong para kumbaga ma-apply mo yung basic skills to practice yung higher order thinking skills. Ang kailangan lang po natin is maturuan natin ang ating mga estudyante kung paano gamitin yung basics to tackle complex problems. Hindi po kailangan dyan ng talino, meron po yung sistema. And kami po, pag nagpa-practice kami ng aming trabaho as scientists, hindi po kami nagko-quiz lagi na, ay bilangan natin yung electron. Ilan yung electron yan? Hindi po ganun yon. Karamihan po ng inaral namin sa undergrad, nakakalimutan na rin namin. But alam namin kung saan kukunin yung information. So dapat po ganun yung level ng, kung ganun po nyo po siya dapat ma-imagine that hindi ang pagtuturo po ng STEM at pag-assess, hindi po talaga siya yung okay, i-memorize lang ng student and that actually achieves the goal of teaching. So hindi po siya ganoon. So mahalaga po again, balance po. Dapat yung natututunan nila sa klase ay kaya po nilang i-apply sa labas ng silid-aralan. Okay. So I will please okay. So ito, I would like to talk about some of the specifics of this project. So our assessment-focused instructional materials will serve as supplemental teaching materials for grades 3 and 7 science topics. So specifically 15 topics po sa buong school year ng grade 3 and then 35 science topics sa grade 7. So ito po ay binubuo ng chemistry, physics, biology, and I think earth science. IMG, please correct me if I missed out on a certain area sa high school. But then, there's a conscious design po for this not to be a competing material. So, hindi po ito repeat ng modules or materials na binibigay po ng DepEd. So, essentially po, talaga pong may engineer. So, we designed and engineered these in such a way na unique po talaga yung content niya. So, focus on higher order thinking skills, 'di ba? 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 ' discussions lang po are examples and problem-based. And then most importantly, we spent time or a specific section or specific a good chunk of these materials focuses on addressing misconceptions. Di ba po? Kasi hindi naman po kasi lahat yan ma-address natin sa loob ng klase. So again, kumbaga ayuda po ito. Kung ano yung hindi nyo ma-cover sa klase na mahalaga pong ating ma-address, these are things that we're tackling in these materials. So IMG, please move to the next slide. So, meron pong basic components ito. Ito po yung anatomy ng instructional materials na ginawa namin. So, meron po kaming printed teaching guide. So, i-provide po namin yan sa inyo. We have 10 to 15 minutes study hack. So, essentially po, this is touching on the basics. But, ito po, it's kumbaga reinforcing yung ituturo ninyo, but examples and situation-based. So, medyo kumbaga, we're teaching STEM sa pamamagitan ng pagkukwento at interactive siya kasi it asks a lot of questions. And then, dito po, medyo natuwa kami. Kasi the process of design thinking allowed for us to explore a bunch of different assessment strategies and formats. Meron po siyang home-based experiments and demonstrations, interactive and virtual games. Meron kaming mga infographics na binibigay dyan. Wherever possible, kapag po ang topic ay masyadong kumbaga quantitative, we also come up with problem sets and worksheets, and then meron din po mga virtual simulation. So, ito po yung mga aabangan po ninyo. So, kumbaga keep checking po yung Filipino Science Hub's website and Facebook pages po kasi dun po namin i-roll out yung mga materials na ito na saktong-sakto po ang timing sa schedule ng inyong curriculum. Okay? IMG, back to you.
Ayan, thank you so much, Kuya Jeff. So, dahil nabanggit na nga ni Sir Jeff kanina yung ating mga PISA-based assessments or yung mga materials na ginagawa ng PhilSci Hub para sa ating mga students. So, i-share ko lang po yung some of the examples na currently ginagawa ng mga module creators dito sa Filipino Science Hub. So, we engineer these modules and assessments as response to the gaps identified by the PISA report. So, kanina din nabanggit kung ni Sir Aldrin yung ating critical thinking part na tinatackle talaga ng ating mga modules. So, we have these 4 C's. Kanina maraming nabanggit si Sir Aldrin na 21st century skills. Pero for this part, inangkla din natin yung ating mga assessments sa 4 C's. So, feel ko po marami din nakakaalam sa inyo kung ano yung 4 C's ng 21st century learning po natin. So, makikitype na lang sa chat box kung ano-ano yung mga 4 C's natin. So, isa na yung critical thinking. So, ito, next slide. Okay. So, for the PISA-based assessments natin, of course, in-emphasize din natin yung communication, creativity, and collaboration since most of or some of the assessments na ginagawa natin ay may ganitong atake. Pero, ang target talaga natin is the critical thinking part since we really want our students to be more critical in analyzing the information given to them. And ito na po yung ilan ko sa mga examples and snapshots ng ating mga modules na ginagawa. So for the first part, we always have the pre-test. So this is to check students' prior knowledge before watching the lecture videos and before answering the different types of assessments that we have. So for the pre-test, ayan, an example is this. This is for the grade 3 module. So, sino po ang ating mga elementary teachers po natin dito? Please type elementary sa ating chat box kung kayo ay elementary teachers. So, ayan, mapapansin natin na multiple choice siya, pero ginawa natin PISA-based in a way that we relate it to a real-life scenario and problem-based. So, ayan, so let me read. Anna has the same type of ear as her mother. Both of them have free earlobes, which refers to ears that hang below to the point of attachment to the head. What do you call this physical quality that both Anna and her mom have? So kung mapapansin natin, mga teachers, hindi lang siya basta define or definition ng trait. Yung i-define natin yung trait and alin dyan yung tamang sagot. So, nag-incorporate tayo ng specific example sa mga bata or sa bata nang sa ganon mas maunawaan ng ating mga students kung ano nga ba yung concept ng trait. And another example, sino naman po yung mga high school teachers natin? So, patay po ng HS sa ating chat box kung high school teacher po kayo. So, for our high school, ang example naman po natin is on the field of ecology, yung sa trophic level po natin. So, the question here is that which of the organisms in this food web gets energy from both producers and consumers? So, instead of just asking our students na ano ang meaning ng producers, ano ang meaning ng consumers, alin dyan ang producer, alin dyan ang consumer. So, ni-level up natin, tunique natin that we gave an illustration na kung saan they will identify what organism in the food web gets energy from both producers and consumers. So, i-analyze talaga nila maigi yung illustration and not just by identifying a specific organism. So aside from the p-test, kasi yung mga p-test po pala natin, by the way, it was, they were crafted na parang magiging synthesis part din siya sa dulo. Kasi since we have pre-test, sa dulo po ng every modules natin, every lecture videos na ginagawa ng PhilSci Hub, meron po tayong post-test o synthesis na tinatawag na kung saan doon po namin sinasagutan yung mga questions. Kaya mapapansin nyo dito, lagi kaming may note na you may pause the video and spend 5 to 10 minutes to answer para yung mga students na nakikinig sa ating mga modules and sa lecture videos natin ay magkaroon ng chance para answerin itong mga questions na to, and then they will check towards the end kung tama nga ba yung kanilang mga sagot and kung may natutunan ba silang bago since after that ay napakinggan na nila yung discussion part. And then we also have these challenge questions. So these challenge questions really parang tina-target yung ating critical thinking skills ng mga students. So an example for this, again, sa elementary, genetics, yung heredity and variation, Anna and Elsa are sisters, but they don't look alike. So how they can be sisters but have variations in their appearance? So bukod sa pagiging PISA-inclined, critical thinking inclined ng ating mga assessment, since ang audience natin ay elementary, grade 3, so ginagawan din ng paraan ng mga module creators na maging relatable sa mga bata yung mga questions, mga activities. So kapag nag-browse po kayo sa aming mga Facebook page and sa websites namin, most of our assessments, parang lalo na kapag elementary level po, nilalagyan namin ng splash ng cartoons, ganon. Nang sa ganon, hindi sila mabore, di ba? Alam po yung mga elementary teachers natin dito, ganito din yung mga style kapag nagtuturo sa mga bata. Kasi talagang maikli yung attention span ng mga grade 3 elementary students, primary students. Ayan. And then, for the high school naman, an example is this question. Tigers, wolves, lions, and leopards are examples of wild creatures that do not eat plants. Does this imply that they can live in the absence of plants? Can you offer a plausible justification? So, yung pinaka-last question, since we have 2 questions, yung can you offer a plausible justification, dito pa lang, tina-target na natin yung HOTS natin or higher order thinking skills. Sapagkat we want our students not just to answer the question, but to justify their answer or to support their argument. And later, doon sa ating PISA levels, we will encounter a PISA level na kung saan ang gustong maiparating ng PISA level na yun is that students should be able to support their arguments with supporting evidences. Kasi 'di ba, kapag tinanong natin yung mga students, oo, kaya nilang sagutin yung mga definition, yung mga terms, identification, multiple choice. Pero ang question natin is, can they support their answer? So, kailangan maganda na may mga follow-up tayo nang sa ganun, malaman natin kung paano nga ba nasagutan ng mga bata itong mga questions na ito. So, preview lamang po dun sa ating mga PISA-based assessments. We have formative assessments. So, mamaya, isa-isa lang din naman po natin to itatake later. I'll just give you an overview. And then for other assessments, we also have alternative assessments. So, ayan, maybe you teachers can chat sa chat box natin yung iba't iba yung uri ng formative and alternative assessments na karaniwan yung binibigay sa inyong mga students. Ayan, feel free to chat po. Pero based doon sa pinakita ding report ni Sir Jeff kanina, meron tayong iba't ibang form ng assessment, lalo na pagdating sa alternative assessment, sapagkat yung mga module creators po natin, very creative po sila. They came from SLSU, UPLB, PNU. So talagang high caliber undergraduate students po sila. So later, papakilala din namin sila. So gumagawa sila ng mga demonstration, experiments, or kaya ang minsan na ginagawa nila assessments ay may mga pa-vlog, ganyan. So marami pong form ng assessments ang ino-offer ng ating mga module creators for our students. So in general, not just PISA-based assessments ang ginagawa natin, we also value the variation sa ating assessment. So kung mapapansin natin, yun nga, we have alternative, formative, tapos may mga form of pre-test pa tayo, challenge questions, and yung pag-address din po ng misconceptions, tinatakal din natin yan sa lecture video. So yung part lang na pre-test, challenge questions, addressing misconceptions, that includes the lower order thinking skills, and then yung ating mga formative assessments na dyan, alternative assessments, yun naman yung nagtatackle ng ating higher order thinking skills. So balance po talaga yung ating paggawa ng modules. Ayan. And yan, dito na po natin i-discuss yung different PISA levels natin. So we have 6 PISA levels. So an example po at level 1. So level 1, students have such a limited scientific knowledge, and yun, yung mga information dito, obvious and follow explicitly from given evidence. So an example for this is the genetics puzzle here na crossword po, or at saka yung trick or traits natin na word hat. Na kung saan dito, the students are given the definition of the words, and they will answer it through the different puzzle. So basic, simple part lang to nung memorization skills, understanding skills ng mga students natin. And ito, at level 2, based din sa PISA report, Filipino students on the part of scientific literacy ay averaging lang po sa level 2. So our students, nandito sila sa level na to. So they can draw conclusion based on simple investigation. So ang example ko naman po dito ay yung gawa ng isa nating module creator na ang title ay Heredity cards. So these are flashcards na kung saan they can access sa studysets.com. Ayan. So bakit draw conclusions based on simple investigation? Kasi itong mga flashcards na to, may mga problem-based questions na kung saan they can flip the card and they will know the answer. So yan, just by reviewing the question, they can draw conclusion based on simple investigations. And another level, level 3, ito yung title naman po ay Double In, Investigating the Inheritance. So genetics po ito on the grade 3 level. So the task for the students is to develop short statements using facts and make decisions based on scientific knowledge. So ang task po ng mga students, sa mga students here, is to determine whether the given characteristics are inherited or not inherited. So for example, yun po, zebra has alternating black and white stripes. So is that inherited or not inherited? And they should support it with their argument or justification. Ayan. So they can develop short statements using the facts and decisions na na-acquire nila doon sa discussion natin. Kasi ang ating pong tactic lagi dito sa paggawa ng module is manunood muna yung mga students ng lecture video na gawa din ng module creators, sa kanila sasagutan itong mga supplementary assessments. Nang sa ganun, ma-check nila kung may natutunan sila. And for the 4th level, yan, highlighted here is that the student should communicate decisions using scientific knowledge and evidence. Since we want nga to be playful sa ating mga students and not to make these assessments boring, so in-incorporate din natin yung some cartoons like yung Family Guy. Ayan, so familiarizing the heritable traits of the family guy. So after seeing the picture, there will be guide questions for this kind of assessment na parang ang questions are ano yung mga characteristic or traits na pare-pareho sa family na to, ano naman yung pagkakaiba-iba, is there variation, bakit kaya ganon? So laging may follow-up question dun sa ating guide questions sapagkat we want our students in this level 4, to communicate their decisions and support it with corresponding evidence. Ayan, using scientific knowledge and evidence. Okay? And second to the last, we have this PISA level number 5. An example for this are the trait mixing and the detective gene. So here the students should construct explanations based on evidence and arguments based on their critical analysis. So para na tong nasa HOTS level na tayo na kung saan yung critical thinking skills ng students yung tinatakal natin. So ang example po dito yung traits mixing. So kung maaga kayo dito sa Zoom meeting natin kanina, pinilay po siya ni Sir Jeff. So ito is parang yung mga NIPS candies natin represents the traits of the parents na kung saan yung offspring, sila yung mag-a-acquire ng mixed traits na kung saan our students can investigate by that video kung paano nga ba nag-work yung traits mixing and yung heredity. And then yung sa detective gene, since mga bata sila, mga elementary students, ang ginawa naman ng module creators natin dito ay yung storytelling part na kung saan ang story dito ay may isang bata sa bahay ampunan na kung saan may dalawang father na nagsasabi na sila yung totoong tatay. So, paano natin malalaman kung sino yung totoong tatay dun sa dalawa? So, we have the traits given dun sa bata and traits ng dalawang parents. So, doon malalaman kung sino yung plausible or possible na parent or father ng bata. So, makikita natin dito na very varied yung ating mga assessments na binibigay per PISA level din dun sa ating mga students. And last but not the least, yung PISA level 6 po natin. So, dito, most of the assessment based on my observation din po, since quality assurance staff din po ako sa Filipino Science Hub, yung mga ginagawa ng mga module creators natin kapag PISA level 6 yung tina-target nila, they create authentic assessments. Nang sa ganon, yung creating level or yung part ng creation ng mga students ay ma-boost. So, here, the students should demonstrate advanced scientific thinking and reasoning. So, itong food chains camera action, ito ay vlog or mini TikTok video na kung saan may, of course, meron pong supporting rubrics na binibigay yung mga module creators. So, don't worry if you will access po yung ating mga sample assessments sa ating website. We also provide teaching guides where the answer keys and tips sa pagtuturo ng mga and pagbibigay ng assessment ay nakalagay din po doon together with the links for the worksheets para sa mga bata. So that's the 6 PISA levels from PISA level 1 to 6. And then ayun po, I hope na marami kayong bagong natutunan since most of the some of the teachers nga kanina ay nabanggit na they are not familiar with the PISA. So ayan po, we have 6 PISA levels that targets students' critical thinking. And hopefully, by implementing and incorporating these PISA levels sa ating mga assessments, ma-fill na po natin yung gaps that was identified by the PISA report. And sana, by these PISA levels din, mas enhance pa natin yung critical thinking skills, yung scientific investigation skills ng mga students natin when it comes to STEM learning. So that's all po for this part, Kuya Jeff.
Okay, thank you so much, IMG. So before you introduce yung ating mga module creators, I would just like to grab the screen kasi gusto ko pong ipakita sa inyo kung paano niyo po ma-access yung instructional materials na assessment focus and base po ang design sa PISA, kumbaga improvement areas. Ayan po. So, nakikita niyo ba ang screen ko?
Yes po.
Punta lang po kayo sa philscihub.com Dito po, so mapupunta kayo dito sa aming main page and makikita niyo po yung icons, grades 3 and 7 science. So dito po namin din nideposito yung mga supplemental instructional materials po for grades 3 and 7 science topics. Pero gusto ko lang po sabihin, before ako pumunta dito, Filipino Science Hub is actually raising funds. We're trying to raise up to about $1.5 million pesos para po makompleto natin yung lahat ng topics from grades 3 to grade 10, mapa naman pong science area. And yung math. So kukumpletuhin po natin yung curriculum. Pero today po, sinisimulan na namin i-deposito dito yung mga materials that we have been developing. So click nyo po yan, makita nyo po ang mga nagagandahang mukha ng ating module creators and mga Filipino scientists who are involved in the process. Ang nakapapasok pa lang po dito at the moment is yung biology supplemental material that focuses on heredity, inheritance, and variation. Click nyo po yan. Pagka-click nyo po dyan, makikita nyo na po, dyan uploaded na po yung, kumbaga meron po kami mini lecture, so may mini lecture si IMG, nandyan yung pre-test, post-test, and yung mga problem-based and situational, kumbaga discussions ng topic na yan, para as a reinforcement po. And then doon na din po, kumbaga embedded na rin within the main lecture is yung mga lower order thinking skills na assessment tools. And then nandito po yung mga class activities na form din po ng assessment, kagaya na sinabi ni IMG, yung detective gene. And I would like to draw your attention. So meron po yung guide video on how to perform or how to participate in the activity. Pero yung mga teachers po, you can also direct your students to the link here kasi nandyan po yung activity sheets. So yung sagutan virtually, pwede lang i-print and i-submit sa klase. Traits mixing, nandyan na din po yan. So essentially, we are curating all of these contents in such a way that punta lang po kayo dyan sa website, ma-access nyo na yan, direct nyo yung students, sabi nyo, panoorin mo yung mga videos dyan, sagutan nyo yung mga worksheets when you have the time, pwede nyo po yung gawin. And then, dito po, what we try to do is meron po talagang variation as IMG mentioned earlier. So we also include additional assessment tools or worksheets po. So trick or traits, the genetic puzzle, the double in investigating. So, i-click ko po ito. Hopefully, makita niyo rin po kung ano ba. Yan. So, makikita niyo po dyan. This is a Google document. Diyan niyo po makikita yung contents ng mga worksheets. So, we're making it, like as easily accessible po for everyone. And pwede niyo po itong i-adapt. Hindi po namin pinababayaran. Ang gusto lang po talaga namin is kumbaga magkaroon po ng additional instruments or tools ang mga guro na pwede nyo pong magamit sa pag-assess ng inyong pagtuturo ng mga topics na ito sa STEM. So again, we're starting with grades 3 and grade 7 science topics, but goal po namin within the next year or two is makumpleto yung buong curriculum. But there's one thing po that I would also like to mention at this point, that nakita niyo po yung design thinking slide na pinakita ko kanina. So we have to test yung effectiveness po nitong mga materials na ito. So if there are teachers po within the audience who are willing to collaborate with Filipino Science Hub, we would like to work with you po on evaluating yung impact assessment. So essentially po, if you are interested in using these materials, perhaps po, baka po pwede nating i-administer sa klase ninyo para makakuha po tayo ng data from the pre-test and post-test. Kasi tulong din po yun sa amin para malaman namin, ay, gumagana ba itong mga to? And makakuha kami ng insights on how to really improve the materials para po ma-maximize natin yung effectiveness. Kasi ang goal po natin is to continuously improve these contents para po mas paganda ng paganda at mas akma po sa pagtuturo ninyo ng STEM ang mga materials, ang supplemental materials na ibinibigay po namin sa inyo. So, yun po. And ito gusto ko lang din pong i-share sa inyo that hindi po natatapos sa pag-provide ng assessment or supplemental instructional ang Filipino Science Hub. We also have ongoing programs na kumbaga ang goal po is to elevate or kumbaga further elevate the skills of our STEM educators. So I would like to share just a poster for this. So this is a project that we are conducting in collaboration with the Foundation for the Upgrading of the Standard of Education and Philippine Normal University. So this is what we call our STEM Teaching Fellowship. So ang objective po nitong program na ito is to enhance the agility of our STEM teachers when it comes to abruptly changing nangyari tayong lahat. Ginagawa po namin sa training program na ito is tinitrain po natin ang mga guro na madali kayong maka-adjust sa mga pabago-bagong sitwasyon at alam nyo kung ano yung mga tools na kailangan nyong gamitin. And then secondly, kumbaga, since this is a collaboration between education leaders and Filipino scientists like me, what we actually try to do is we also provide educators with practical and innovative STEM teaching strategies and tools. So kumbaga, isa-solidify, kumbaga, isa-strengthen natin yung foundation, but then, since kami po, mga nag-aral po kami sa ibang bansa, we also try to, kumbaga, infuse additional tools and ideas that you can use para kumbaga ma-elevate naman natin din yung content na binibigay natin sa mga bata such that hindi lang din po yung basics or yung kumbaga yung base case ang ma-deliver natin. Dagdagan po natin ng konti kung kaya naman para kumbaga yung mga estudyante natin when they go out to the workforce, they will not only be competitive in the Philippines but more so internationally. And so ito pong program na to, it focuses on 4 areas. So the first of which is yung STEM pedagogy fundamentals. So yung materials po na dinevelop namin dito, actually yung mga training courses po dito ay nasa amin pong YouTube channel. So you can go back to it. So yung fundamentals of STEM pedagogy, so we have 4 teaching education leaders from PNU, and then binalanse po natin yan ng innovative approaches to STEM instruction, mga scientists naman po from PhilSci Hub ang bumuunan. And then yung may phase 2 po itong training program na ito. So essentially nag-iimbita po kami ng small group of teachers and we subject them to a 5-week reflective teaching program. So 5 weeks po 'yon na kumbaga meron silang topics for reflection, and then they work as part of a team and we assign mentors to them. Yung mentors po dyan, again, Filipino scientists and education leaders. And then since meron po itong group activity and collaboration, we're also building a community of practice. So we have our first cohort, yung first batch po natin, so 7 chem teachers and 7 physics teachers from DepEd Rizal province. We're planning on running this as well sa Agusan del Norte. Meron din po kaming plano siguro for private school teachers. And then later on, we will scale this up. So kung meron po sa inyo mga interested, watch out for this kasi we plan to scale this up po para mas maraming mga guro ang ating matulungan. Okay, so at this point, I would like to give the floor back to IMG para po mapakilala niya yung ating mga module creators rin.
Ayan, thank you so much, Kuya Jeff. So, i-share ko lang po ulit yung ating PPT. Nakikita na po ba? Pakitype po ng 1 kung nakikita na po yung ating slides. Ayan, thank you so much. So, since nabanggit ko na po kanina na we have different module creators po creating our supplementary assessments and materials sa Filipino Science Hub. So, narito po sila. So, una ko po munang ipakilala yung dalawa po nating interns sa ating Filipino Science Hub team. Una is si EJ. So, si EJ po ay from Central Luzon State University and he is a 4th-year student of BS Biology major in botany. So talagang aspiring science communicator po siya and talagang interested siya sa world ng flora, lalo na doon sa mga plant pathology part. Ayan, yun yung kanyang expertise. And then si Seth naman po is a graduating BS Chemistry student from the University of Santo Tomas. And ayan, talagang very creative din po talaga tong si Seth kasi yung kanyang mga assessments and mga modules na ginagawa, she incorporates different and varied forms of it. Ayan. And then, ito pong ating 2 additional, so last month lang sila nadagdag sa ating team. So si Kirby and Nicole, both of them ay galing po sa University of the Philippines, Los Baños. And ka-course ko po sila, BS Mathematics and Science Teaching. And both of them are major in chemistry. So, unahin natin si Kirby. So, si Kirby, his goal in the teaching career is to facilitate students in appreciating the beauty of science and help them to learn authentically through differentiated instruction and assessment. So, and guide them to develop 21st century skills. So, nakakatuwa po kasi itong si Kirby ay may YouTube channel din na kung saan talagang nagtuturo siya, particularly yung Earth and Life Sciences naman yung tinuturo niya. And then for Nicole naman po, Nicole ay senior student naman po ng BS-MST sa UPLB, and she really like to teach chemistry since naging kaklase ko to. So talagang ang kanyang maging gusto is maging chemistry teacher, and she aims that someday she could generate educational policies that would improve the realities of the Philippine educational system. And part din siya ng debate team ng UPLB. So yung kanyang mga assessments and yung mga lecture videos niya, talaga namang kapag napanood ito ng mga students natin, talagang very clear and elaborated mag-discuss si Ate Nicole. And last but not least, yung pinakabago po nating module creator coming from the Philippine Normal University, fourth-year student, si Nikki Floran V. Castolo, na isa ding DUST SEI scholar. And ayun, she is often described as very diligent and organized person. So mapapansin yan sa mga gagawin niyang module kasi nga kakapasok niya pa lang. Pero Nikki is one of parang tinitingnan na agad namin yung possibility na maganda yung module na magagawa niya kasi recommended siya by PNU professors, na kung saan yung mga PNU professors natin ay talagang into creation ng science, particularly yung STEM modules natin, yung chemistry modules. Ayan. So, antabay lang tayo sa mga gagawing modules po ng ating 5 module creators. So, kasama na din po ako dyan sa module creators natin. So, hopefully, kapag bumisita po kayo sa ating website, ay makita nyo yung mga assessments and learning videos na nagawa or gagawin ng ating mga module creators. So don't worry po, nakita ko na may mga nag-chat sa ating Facebook, sa ating YouTube live na sana daw po ay math naman. So ayan, balak din po talaga naming lahatin lahat ng mga topics and subjects in the near future. So intay-intay lang po tayo sapagkat paparating po tayo dyan. So sa ngayon, grade 3 and grade 7 science modules muna yung ginagawa namin ng modules. Pero ayun po, dadating po tayo din dyan sa paggawa ng science and mathematics module for all the grade levels. So ayun.
Pero singitan ko lang din. Dun po sa mga nagre-request ng math, we might be able to start rolling out materials po as early as siguro first quarter of 2023. So yan din po kasi namin ginagawa na sabay-sabay lahat. Ang gusto po namin din mangyari is you may actually stop sharing the screen, IMG. What we're trying to do po is roll out, a certain number of modules, and then gusto po kasi namin matesto for feedback para alam po namin how to design the materials effectively. Kasi mahirap po, baka gagawin namin lahat sabay-sabay tapos hindi pala siya gumagana. So what we just ask for you to do po is to stay in contact with us through email or din po sa aming PhilSci Hub page. We roll out surveys every once in a while kung ano po yung mga materials or topics gusto niyo pong na kailangan niyo pong gamitin in the near term. So watch out lang po doon kasi we're very interactive. Gusto po namin nakukuha yung feedback niyo. So kung may request po kayo na topic, perhaps we can actually look for resources. Hindi man po natin masapatan yung buong pangangailangan niyo sa buong taon kasi this is a developing process and a project that we're really aggressively building. So ang gusto lang po namin mangyari is to stay connected with us, and maganda po kasi talagang masubukan po natin kung gumagana po ito. So again, we're at the early stages of this project, but we are really very serious po dito sa ating endeavor na ito na mabigyan po kayo ng supplemental material that would help yun pong kumbaga would supplement kung ano man yung magandang materials na ginagawa ng DepEd. Kumbaga, again, gawin po natin competitive ang mga batang Pilipino, and we're making all these accessible to you. Hindi po kami nagpapabayad. These are all freely accessible. Ang gusto lang po namin sana ay kumbaga yung insights din po namin as Filipino scientists, yung mindset na pwede nating ibigay sa mga estudyante inilalapat po namin dito. Hindi lang po ito yung parang magme-memorize ka ng periodic table. Ako po, gumana yun for me kasi hanggang ngayon memorize ko yung periodic table, ilang taon na ako. But you know, it's beyond that. Like when I practice chemistry as a scientist, hindi ko na siya nagagamit din talaga. There's a lot more. HUTs, napakahalaga po niyan. So let's aim for that. Ayun, so at this point, I would like, kumbaga, medyo nag-overtime po tayo, but we value po yung inyong pagtutok. So siguro po, we can spend siguro 10-15 minutes for questions if you have any. We would be happy to answer. Aldrin, would you like to go to turn your camera on para maisama ka namin dito sa spotlight? Ayan. Okay, so meron po ba tayong questions sa Zoom? So feel free to to write your comments or raise your hand kasi sagutin po natin yung mga tanong. Ayan. Ayan, so
Chat po. Ayan.
Opo. So, grade 7 lang po pala ang available. So, yung initial rollout po, grade 7, but we're gonna be completing it. Pero, we can actually collaborate in a couple of different ways. So, pwede pong, for example, sa second quarter of ng school year, we can collaborate on testing out a couple of topics. Kung may request po kayo na topics, message nyo po yan sa amin. And kung willing po kayo na i-test out din po yan, as supplemental naman po natin siyang gawa ng paraan. Ang pinakamaganda po kasi sana pwede mangyari dito is kung ano po talaga yung pangangailangan at willing kayong gamitin rin, yun po yung uunahin natin. Kasi mahalaga pong nakikita namin ano ba yung tamang approach. Kasi ito po, best effort namin. So we have education majors like IMG. We also have college level professors like Aldrin na meron din pong pedagogical training. So, kumbaga, we're bringing in people from different areas of specialization and na merong iba't ibang perspectives and experiences. And yun pong design namin, itong mga prototypes na to, ay kumbaga, leveraging what we know kung paano masasapatan yung pangangailangan ng basic education level. But then, yung mga kaparehas ko po, kumbaga dadagdagan natin ng konti. Kumbaga para ma-reimagine natin ng konti. Paano ba natin ito matuturo? Para kung ano man yung mga insights na natutunan ko na nag-motivate sa akin para maging scientist, kumbaga ma-infuse natin siya in such a way na hindi na friendly and digestible para sa mga grade 3 or grade 7 students. So, ganoon po yun. So, actually, maganda po siguro dito, we can collaborate with some of you on the design. So kung gusto nyo pong, kumbaga, ma-involve sa aming ideation process, kasi kayo po ang gumagamit dito sa klase. So we would also be open to that. Ayan. Ayan, meron po kaming Actually, punta po kayo dun sa PhilSci Hub. May searchable tab po yan. Over the past couple of years, we have been compiling materials that you can use as supplemental, kumbaga, tools po sa pagtuturo. Pero ito pong ginagawa namin project na to ngayon, ito po ay specific talaga design para i-fill yung gaps na na-identify ng PISA sa performance ng mga Filipino students, and then focus po talaga sa assessment at saka sa higher order thinking skills rin. So, yun po. Hopefully po, kumbaga, maging maging two-way ito between you and us. Mahalaga po ang insights ninyo. Ayan. Ay, opo, pwede niyo po yung gamitin na review materials. Actually po, pwede niyo po siyang gawin. So kung panoorin niyo po yung video ni IMG dun sa sample namin na roll out namin today dun sa grade 3. Actually, medyo marami, may ilan na tayong, meron na tayong siguro nearly 10 na modules. Meron po tayong physics, meron pong chemistry na tapos na, meron pong biology na dagdag. So, antabayanan nyo lang po over the next couple of weeks kasi we're curating it in the website. So, we're materials po, we'll be dropping materials every week. So, yun naman po. And ang goal po namin is, kumbaga masabay namin ang schedule niyo between now and the end of the year and then the rest of the school year. And we are also running some international fundraising projects po. So, kapag na-hit namin yung target namin na funds po for this project, asahan niyo po medyo mabilis-bilis na namin makukumpleto yung yung curriculum. Ayan. You have future webinars on how to create TOS. Wala pa po, pero good request yan. Sir Aldrin, humanap tayo ng pwede natin maging speaker dyan. More likely po, baka pwede natin yung gawin in the month. Medyo puno na po kasi yung October namin. October pala po is can be physics months for PhilSci Hub. So all Saturdays of October, meron po tayong physics webinar. So from fundamentals to application. And so we'll be featuring speakers and experts from the Institute of Mathematical Sciences and Physics from the University of the Philippines. So kung gusto niyo po ng medyo, kumbaga, guidance on how tips on how to teach physics and hanggang research and then application, yung lahat ng Saturdays po ng October mapupuno po. And perhaps November pwede po natin gawin tong sa paggawa ng TOS. Ayan. Can we use your material in action research, sir? Of course, meron po tayong webinars dyan. But gusto ko rin pong sabihin sa inyo na part po ng teacher training program po natin for next year is magpapa-workshop po tayo sa action research. And actually, ito pong mga materials ito, yung paggamit niyo ng mga materials ito, we can also conduct action research out of this. One thing that Filipino Science Hub is also doing with our teacher training program is, kumbaga we're partnering up with these institutions kasi gusto po namin mag-conduct din ng research para mas maintindihan po namin kung paano po ba talaga ang pag-improve ng performance ng mga guro. So, ayan po. Ito pong session na to, hindi po ito accredited sa CPD, libre po ito. And hindi po namin ginagawa yan, but we're in the process of also, so Filipino Science Hub is a registered nonprofit organization in the US po. So, pero we're working on our registration in the Philippines, and later on, we're about to also venture into that area. Ayan. Ayan po. Mostly comments, walang masyadong tanong. Ayan. Can we use your material? Ayan. Ano pa? I am a DepEd science supervisor. I like to try your materials in... Ma'am, collaboration with DepEd Rizal Province. We are about to enter into collaboration with DepEd Agusan del Norte. And then perhaps with sa division po ninyo, we can also work together. Yan, si Ma'am Noida de Guzman. And ma'am. So I think I gave Ma'am Noida my email address offline. So hopefully we can work together po. And ito po, ito pong project na to is part of PhilSci Hub Education. We have a research portfolio po. So yung mga capstone projects niyo po, yung basic training for teachers and students on how to perform scientific research. College level, we meron po kaming pipeline of materials, and we have like a full portfolio po of freely accessible training materials. At ito po, ang gumawa po ng mga materials na ito ay hindi po, kumbaga mga experience sa Filipino scientist po. So talaga napaka-practical po ng pagtuturo. Hindi po ito yung mga formulaic na theoretical na ito ang abstract, ito ang ganito, ito ang proposal, ito yung mga steps sa research process. Practical po, the way we do it. So para hindi ma-intimidate ang mga bata. Ayan. Mukhang medyo wala silang tanong, so I'm hoping po na that you got motivated po. She had her capstone. Yeah. I think we have a few things to talk about, to discuss. So hopefully we can work together. Ayan po. So Filipino Science Hub is in the process of establishing partnerships with grassroots institutions, and sa totoo lang po, napakahalaking bagay po na ang DepEd management, lalo na po sa division level, mahalaga po na yung ating mga supervisors ay plugged in, kasi para nakikita rin po nila kumbaga paano tayo lumalapit sa mga guro, and mahalaga din po kasi ang suporta nila. Ayan po. Ayan. So, at this point po, kung medyo wala na kayong questions, we will, yun pong Google form ay akin na pong ita-type in dito. So if you have So ayan po yung gagamitin natin for sa pag-issue ng certificate. So please make sure po na tama po ang inyong spelling kasi po yung Google, yung pong certificates are automatically generated. So kung ano po yung information na inilagay nyo sa Google form, yun din po ang mapupunta sa certificate ninyo. And since medyo we actually have had more than 100 participants today, so medyo ano po, we're generating those certificates in batches. So sometimes po it might more than a week for you to get your certificate. So please bear with us po. And then beyond 10 days, kung hindi pa rin po makuha, please send us your your follow-up email. Ayan, may I use your materials for my innovation project? Sure po. Again, we actually upload these materials out in the open essentially sa social media spaces po na freely publicly accessible. So yan po, use it like however it can help you, but what we would really appreciate po is if you can provide us with feedback na kapag kasi again, this will help us engineer ways of helping you in the most effective manner. Ayun po. So magtulungan po tayo. Yes, this is recorded po sa YouTube. Ito pong session na ito. Actually, marami na po kami mga... So, hindi po namin nasabi sa simula kasi mukhang marami pong baguhan ngayon. Filipino Science Hub has actually already rendered about 80 web events. Over the past 2 years, we have already trained about 37,000 live participants. So, ang dami na po namin content out there. Pumunta lang po kayo dyan. Marami po yung mga materials. Yung pong about a year and a half ago, IMG was part of our first batch of module creators. Meron na din po siya mga materials na ginawa dati for Filipino Science Hub. Pero yun po, that was more to help the teachers access materials na kailangan during the pandemic. This time around, sobrang iba na po yung approach namin based on a need. And we engineered it. So talaga pong ginamitan namin ng research and development, product development, itong project na ito. So meron po talagang conscious design, talagang pinag-isipan po at pinaghirapan. Okay, thank you so much po. Ano po ang meron sa September 17? Anong meron sa September 17? Oh, sorry po, medyo hindi ko po na-catch yun. Sa poster po ba yun? Ayan. Medyo hindi sorry po Ma'am Jermina, hindi ko po ma-recall kung ano po yung pinakita ko na merong September 17th. Baka po dun yun pong baka po dun sa teaching fellowship yun pong physics month po, it starts October 1st. So it's 3 weeks away. I think meron na ba tayong I think wala tayong event na September 17th. Yung September 17th po, dun po sa teaching fellowship yun, but that's exclusive po yun sa 15 teachers. Pero watch out po, meron po kami plano again na i-scale up yan. So sooner or later, hopefully po, karamihan sa inyo maka-experience rin nun. Napakasaya po niyang gawin. Ayan. Okay, so kung wala na po kayong questions, like maraming salamat po sa pagtutok. Medyo na-invade po namin ang inyong what you call this, lunch, ang inyong tanghalian. So kita-kita po ulit tayo sa susunod na webinar. So yung pong more webinars po, follow po Philippine sa Facebook website po kami. Actually po, balanse po yung ginagawa naming materials. So, meron po kami materials for teachers, meron po kami materials for students. Kung gusto niyo po ang mga students nyo ay maka-access din ng mga materials that they can watch kapag po may free silang oras, directly nyo lang po sila sa aming website kasi we have all of those segregated materials depende po sa audiences. So, yun po. Muli, maraming salamat po sa inyo. Hopefully po makita uli namin kayo sa susunod na webinar. So again, I would personally like to thank Sir Aldrin, Bonto, and Mhar, Gabriel. Nakaka-proud po itong dalawang ito. And talaga mapaglingkod po sa bayan ang mga yan. And ayan, maraming salamat po. Aldrin and IMG will debrief. Ay, mag-picture tayo. Siguro mag-picture tayo. Gusto niyo po ba? Mag-group picture po tayo. Sino ba magte-take ng picture? Kung willing po kayong magbukas ng camera pero meron tayong remembrance from this session, we would like to invite you to kumbaga, pakita niyo naman po ang inyong mga nagagandahan at nagagwapuhang mga mga mukha. Ayan. Tuwan-tuwa si Aldrin. Ayan. IMG, could you take a screenshot of
Okay po.
our group? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay po. May hahabol pa po ba? Ayan. Okay, first page
Ayan.
po
Huwag na po
muna.
kayo maya.
1. Yan, may humahabol po.
Yan.
1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Wait lang po. Yung next page naman po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan. Okay na po. Thank you po.
Alright, maraming salamat po. Ingat po kayo. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and we'll see you again po sa susunod na webinars. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po for attending. Restful weekend to everyone.
Salamat po.
Thank you so much po. God bless.
Thank you.